Thank you. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of Town Council dated December 16th, 2013. Staff, if you could lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start with a brief discussion by Chandler Rose, who is our tax assessor, who we asked to come and speak with us a little bit this evening about the reval, which the information is beginning to disseminate to our public, so I thought it would be helpful to have Chandler give us a little summary. Thank you for coming, Chandler.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight to provide an update on where the town is in the current revaluation project. The new property assessment notices were mailed this past Friday. We're receiving phone calls now from property owners that they are receiving them, and they're asking certain questions about that. The notices that were mailed to property owners provide the new assessment along with last year's assessment, so you can compare. The notices also contain contact information if a property owner would like to schedule a meeting to discuss their property assessment with Vision Government Solutions. They were the vendor contracted to assist us with the revaluation. The notices also include information regarding the website of the assessment data for the entire town. Right on the notice, it's vgsi.com. There's also a link to that website through the town of Weathersfield's website as well. The notices also have information if a property owner would like to seek an appeal with the Board of Assessment Appeals. The next step in this project is the informal property hearings, and that's going to be held with representatives from Vision Government Solutions. Those are going to be starting at the end of this week, and they're going to be held at the community center. There are evening appointments available for those that work during the day. They've set aside a handful of nights where they have those available. Those are scheduled to conclude the last week of January, and we've posted the meeting dates and times on the town's website as well. We've also posted additional information regarding the project on the town's website as well. Once the informal hearings are concluded, Vision will send out the final assessment notices. Right now, the ones that are out are the preliminary and are subject to change. The grand list is scheduled to be filed on January 31st, and at this time, we're not anticipating needing an extension to file the grand list. If a property owner is seeking an appeal with the Board of Assessment Appeals, they must file an appeal application no later than February 20th, and that's noted on this assessment notice that went out. Appeal applications, along with the Board of Assessment Appeals schedule for the March meetings, can also be found on the town's website, and the applications are available there as well, also in the assessor's office. The Board of Assessment Appeals will conclude their meetings at the end of March, and at the conclusion of the meetings, I will be able to provide the final grand list figures after the Board of Assessment Appeal changes. We anticipate giving that to the Finance Department in early April, so that'll be the final grand list after all of the changes. And then the property tax bills reflecting the new assessments will be mailed out July of 2014. So that's the upcoming schedule on the project. We don't anticipate any, snags or delays with that schedule that I just went over. And as we noted, the first preliminary assessments went out this past Friday.
Chandler, could you, and I appreciate that schedule, maybe some specific questions about the schedule as well, but if you could maybe just give whatever you're comfortable sharing from a broad point of view. This reval is roughly 5 years from the last reval, is that correct?
That's right.
So essentially, for the benefit of those that are looking at it in the public and seeing their tax assessments for their properties, it's fair to probably point out that we obviously have gone through a significant recession since the last revaluation. So we can assume that some of the values on homes particularly have been impacted by that. But can you give a little bit of an overview of what that looks like and how we might compare, if you know, with other towns within Greater Hartford?
Sure. As you had stated, the last revaluation in Weathersfield was done in 2008. The difference between this revaluation and the one that we did in 2008, 2008's consisted of having an inspection done of everyone's property. Everyone was visited by a data collector, and an interior inspection was, attempted. This revaluation was more done based on running statistical analysis of where the real estate market is today in 2013. We did do inspections. We inspected any building permits that were done, any sales inspections, anything, anyone that requested an inspection. After all of that analysis, we took it and compared it to what the real estate is transferring for today. I took a look at how many sales we've looked at over the past 2 years that were qualified transactions, and we had approximately 472 transfers that we were able to look at, which is a good number. That's going to give you a really good idea of where we are. So to answer your question specifically, yes, we did see a decline in the residential real estate market. I don't know the exact number as of yet, because as I've stated, we're still in the preliminary phase. Everything is subject to change. But we did the overall, the first pass, if you will, we did see that.
Mm-hmm. And how about on the commercial side?
The commercial side was also done. We used a lot of the commercial property owners' income and expense statements. They're required by statute to file that with the town. So we take a look at a lot of that for our analysis of the commercial properties. And again, based on the preliminary numbers that we've seen prior to the hearings, we've seen an increase in the commercial properties. And again, subject to
Obviously,
change.
to
Okay.
completion. Do counselors have questions? Tony?
Chandler, the commercial stuff's gone up. Do you know what caused that? Did they do increased building permits? Was it because of the facade loans that improved the structure of the buildings? Were they out buying more equipment? Are there more businesses in town? Do you know what generated this increase on the commercial side?
We do, and we looked at that. I think it was a combination of a few things. To your point, some of it was, in fact, due to building permits, new construction of commercial properties, which we've seen. Certainly, it did also have an effect looking at rents. We analyzed that as well, and we did see that some of the rental commercial properties were seeing a bounce back. We also looked at that with apartments. The apartment market, if you will, is rather strong, so that's going to have an impact as well on that. And then we also looked at, of course, the retail end of it as well, which is also showing signs of a bounce back.
Other questions from counselors? Jeff?
Chandler, when you're going through, if you go through the schedule again, if somebody is away, like I'm sure some of our residents are away for a couple of weeks around the holidays, I think the informal meetings ended like the 3rd or so of January. If they needed information, but they're away for the holidays, could you accommodate them before the cutoff for the grand list?
Absolutely. We've kind of accounted for that, looking at the calendar and seeing the holidays. We did note that, and we currently have some extra dates set aside at the community center, so that if we do see, that number start to increase for people that can't make it in by the 3rd, I also will do hearings with property owners. It's already started today. Okay. With people receiving them. So, I'll do that as well. We did all of the inspections in-house for this revaluation. All of the inspections were done by either myself or someone in the assessor's office. So if someone does contact us, we will go out and re-inspect the property if they request it. So yes, we will set aside some extra time.
And for residential property, I know you said that in general, the value went down somewhat. If somebody saw an increase, would it be mostly because they've done some improvement to that dwelling, or could it be that their neighborhood all of a sudden is viewed more attractive, or is it pretty much just because they've done work on that house? Or
You know, obviously, it's a case-by-case kind of situation right now, but I would say that one of the drivers that would increase a person's property value is new construction, any improvements that they do. You know, if there was an error on the prior assessment, that would cause an adjustment for this year's assessment. Obviously, that's going to factor in. And I would say that most of the residential properties had one of those type of occurrences, but again, we look at them on a case-by-case or specific property.
Okay, and
that's the way we look at that.
And to be clear, every property in town is getting a letter.
That's correct.
So whether you're going up, down, sideways, everybody's getting a letter.
That's
And-
right.
And did you say, did all those letters go out Friday?
Yes, they did. Yep.
Okay.
We're mandated by state statute to notify property owners of their assessment, their new assessment.
Okay.
We're required to do that by law. So yes, every single property owner received one. If you did not get one, certainly, reach out to the assessor's office, and, we'll find out the reason why you didn't receive it. And then we also have copies of all of them in our office, and we can easily reproduce the document if someone did not receive it.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
Chandler, just to follow up, but again, when you look at the area, you didn't respond to that. Do you have any sense of how we are doing as compared to other neighboring towns with respect to assessments? Do you seen any patterns?
You're right.
That's
Sorry
okay.
about
I know
that.
we're throwing a lot at you, and I
No
apologize.
problem. Actually, comparatively speaking, based on our preliminary analysis and then looking at other municipalities that have recently sent out their notices that have done revaluations for 2013, in most instances, we're looking at figures that are higher, I guess, than other towns.
Higher values.
Right, that's right, yes, than surrounding communities.
So that would suggest that Weathersfield is doing a little bit better than some of our neighboring communities with respect to the recession for home values.
Or maintaining value.
Yeah, without knowing the other towns' situations, based on what I can see and
Yeah.
what the other towns have, shared, yes, I would say that.
Okay. Very good. Other questions, thoughts? Chandler, I want to thank you for coming. I know we kind of did that last minute on you before it came out. I think residents are obviously going to have some questions, I'm sure, for your office once they receive their specific assessments. And obviously, it's going to have some impact on our mill rate as we look at what happens in the spring as we go through the budget process. But I appreciate that it's obviously been done in very efficient fashion, and I suspect there'll be residents that want to come out and take advantage of discussing the findings on their specific properties. And of course, we welcome the public to do that. But hopefully, the overall perspective, given the recession, is positive, and people will be able to digest the information and get follow-up with you. Thank you, Chandler. Have a nice holiday, by the way.
Thank you, too. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next is public comment. Mr. Clinch, of course.
Jim Clinch, 903 Ridge Road. I got my letter today, and I'm not too good at math. It's too bad he's leaving, but because I got three dates. Was Friday the 3rd at 9 o'clock in the morning, which I work, so I'll have to take a day off, and 2 in the late morning on Thursday. It's not, he's acted like he's accommodating the public. He's not accommodating the public. I have to, in a short notice, I come back from Florida on the 1st, I'm going down to visit my daughter, and I have to come back and face this guy. My taxes on my house, not on my businesses, went up about 60%, and it's not right. And they did it once before, and I had to go to the review board, and they looked at it, but he's not giving you the right information, because I went on this morning when I got my letter. I got it today, and I went right on the computer, and it was two appointments on Thursday and one Friday morning at 9 o'clock. And I have to take a half a day off because of it. Thank you.
I would, Jim, I just would recommend, based on what you've said and what Chandler just said, that you should reach out to him about the schedule, because it sounds like there's some flexibility to take a look at some options in light of your schedule, so I guess I would encourage you to do that. Other residents wishing to speak? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. At your last town council meeting, I was a little quiet on the issue, but I was surprised that you folks nominated and gave the position to David Drake to be on the infrastructure committee or school committee. The reason I was kind of like, how could this happen? I mean, David Drake was totally involved in that $680-some thousand that we had to pay back to the state of Connecticut. That meant, and the whole ball of wax was $1.2 million of misreporting to the state of Connecticut when he did that. And then, of course, it was negotiated down to where we had to end up paying $682,000 back to the state, which meant there was $680-some thousand of work that was performed on the schools that was not reimbursed, which cost us 100%. Our goal is to always get reimbursed. And I think Mr. Drake was right up to his neck in that, and then you nominated him and appointed him to the same committee that he used to be on where he made that big error. And I'm sure he's made other errors as well, because you don't always make one. You always make a lot more. And I think that was extremely poor. You all knew that. And to appoint him was so wrong. I got my tax notice, or reval notice today in the mail also. I haven't seen it yet, only that my wife called me to tell me about it. And as I had been saying, the values of our properties have been going down and down. I don't hear much from you about how our property values have gone down over the last since the beginning of this recession. You're kind of mum about it, but now we're hearing about reval coming along, and this is the first time. If you ever talked about reval before at one of these meetings, I'd like to know what day it was, because I don't recall. If you did, you weren't talking loud enough, or maybe I missed it somehow. But the thing is, it just popped up to me. But the values, the proof in the pudding is the values of our properties have dropped, and they've dropped badly in many cases. And it's because of the way Wethersfield operates. Raising taxes doesn't increase property values. Putting taxes down will increase the value of our properties. And you, as the board of directors, have done a job that has hurt everybody who owns a home in town. People that own businesses, same thing. Of course, we'll see how that whole thing balances out, but if the value of my property went down, I'm mad as heck. And I think of people in my neighborhood who paid X amount of dollars, and if they got a similar letter to me, and they bought their homes over the last 3-4 years, they're way underwater. And that's because of the mismanagement, the overtaxation that goes on in this town. And something needs to happen, and it needs to be reversed. You know, the Hartford Courant reported our whole economy sunk 9% over this recession. Yet you folks didn't, you know, taxes still went up. You should have gone down 9% to be in balance with the citizens. But that didn't happen. And of course, the party that just got out of office claimed that, oh, their tax increases was very small. But no, you got to consider that 9% loss that we took. Their tax increases were high based on the losses that we had to take. There was also an article, next subject. There was an article in the Hartford Courant regarding the schools and the performance of our schools, and I'm sure everybody has seen that. And it appears that Wethersfield superintendent wasn't too happy with what was going on with his scores. It's been going on for years, yet nobody wants to admit how bad we're doing. When we start looking at our scores up against our neighbors, and first of all, our score for the performance index was 83.1 overall. This is coming right from their system. Whereas in Rocky Hill, it was 90.2. Nice increase from what we have. In Newington at 87.6. Cromwell was 86.5. And of course, Glastonbury and Berlin was 86.8. And of course, Glastonbury across the river, our other neighbor, was 91.5. But we're at 83.1. For 12, 13 years, we haven't seen any increase in our CMPs and our CAP testing test scores on the average for our school. They've been very much level for all these years, and this year they took a drop. 5 years, 6 years ago, we were in the 70s, up against the rating of all the 150-some towns we have in the state of Connecticut. We were in the 70s. Now we're at 112. We keep dropping and dropping. Yet, year after year, the budgets have been increased for the school system. We've seen such increases, and we've seen no results. And now we're seeing the results in the valuation of our properties. It's coming back to haunt us, Mayor. And something needs to happen. Now, some of these other superintendents in the neighborhood near us, you know, they're talking about 5.7% budget increases they're looking at. These towns, like this town of East Hartford, who wants 5.7% budget increase for the school system, their numbers look much, much horrible than our numbers for performance. Yeah, this is the kind of increase they're looking at. Middletown, same idea, 5.8%. And they're nowhere near what pathetic Wethersfield is at. So we have tried. We have the citizens have been ponying up the money year after year, and the professionals that we have done the absolute poor job. You've heard from me year after year about this, and here we are. We're now we've seen our values going down. Oh yeah, we're probably in a little niche right now of catch up a little bit, but it's not going to be much at all in the home prices. And as we talked about at the last meeting, state of Connecticut is going to be looking in the year 2014, 15, 16 at some terrible deficits. And that's going to be even worse on our tax increases. So we need to reduce. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
And thank you for the extra time.
Anyone wishing to speak? Hi, Lee.
Lee Seekis, 117 Wells Road. I have a couple of things to say. Not all bad. There's some good. Well, one thing is, when I was here 2 weeks ago, telling people, snow's coming, be ready, I don't think many people heard me because this year seems to be worse than some of the others for starters. Going to mail a package today at the post office, through the curb cuts at Wells Road and Sastine were totally untouched. Sidewalks were not that passable. But I have to say, a week and a half ago, coming back from Price Right, I stopped next to the cleaners where that florist shop was opening, and I said, nice business, but you're not accessible. And the man told me we are going to become accessible soon. We're working with the town and having it done right. So hallelujah for that, because it took an effort to make a single-step business to finally, make itself more friendly to the people who might be patronizing their business. All I can say is it's snowing again tomorrow, according to the weatherman, and it might be warming up the end of the week, but maybe it's time to remind people with a couple warnings or tickets or something, because signs don't do it. Things that hurt are things that they have to cough up, like a little fine. When I went to mail my package to the post office, I had to wait 20 minutes because the ramp was totally blocked by a non-wheelchair, non-handicapped vehicle because they had no place to park. And I felt like sitting there for 20 minutes to make them wait. But it's the fines that make people react, not just the words. A fine is like an action. Words is like nothing. And you know that old saying, action speaks louder than words. So hopefully we can have this town shape up a little better, because a friend of mine who came and visited me today from Newington, she said, well, Weathersfield is a lot worse looking than Newington, and that kind of hurt. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sekas. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Rue?
One of the things, George A. Rowe, 956 Cloverdale Circle. I just got to make sure I got that right. I'm watching Chandler up here before, and he's like this, the whole time. And I thought and I've commented on this in the past, this is a lousy ergonomically designed podium. And you notice I always keep my stuff up here. I don't know who designed it, but I suggest a change. If you need some ergonomic experience, I have a little bit of fun to start out with. I got my tax thing today also. I got it, we're lucky. We have a mailman who arrives in the dark, like after 6 o'clock at night, and I don't know what the problem is, but we talk about it at home a lot. And I got my mail, and I walked out of the house, my wife said, what do these numbers mean? They went down a little bit. So I didn't know what it meant. I didn't read the letter. But on what I hear today, and when Chandler told me the property had gone down, I said, aha, you know why? Because I got a bad neighbor. It's got nothing to do with anything. I got a bad neighbor that doesn't take care of their property. Everybody comes and says, George, that property next door is pretty lousy. So, that's what I'm attributing it to. So, go fix it, guys, and let it go with that. A couple of the things that intrigue me in government, oftentimes are small items. They're the little items that are indicative of, how good are our people, how responsible. Good is the wrong word, but how do our leaders respond to things? A couple of things caught my eye. One of them was the officials concerned with low voter turnout. And I was attributed to agreeing to a large degree with Mr. Montanari, and I have to say I did. I was interviewed by Mark over here, and as we were chatting, a thought came to my mind, and I shared it with him. I wish he had put it in exactly as I said. And I said, low voter turnout does not make for good government. Low voter turnout does not make for good government, and I'm speaking directly to you, Stasis. More directly, George Rue's approach, low voter turnout makes for bad government, which ultimately results in corruption. And how did I arrive at that conclusion? And I'm going to just read a brief quote here from the paper. Councilor Stathis Didn't seem to be concerned about the voter turnout, noting that it's been low for the past 2 elections for 32%, at 32%. Our take is that it hasn't been too much difference than the past 2 election cycles. Maybe the past 2 election cycles have been lousy too, and people are becoming very disenchanted over a period of time. And he added, generally, unless there's an issue, you'll see lower turnout. So that might be a problem on the Democrat candidate's part. I don't really see it that way. I see low voter turnout. The problem, as you read the newspaper, maybe go beyond the current and you see what's happening on a national basis, any of these places where voter turnout is low, the candidates don't have a hell of a lot of people that they have to convince. A small group can take over. And that doesn't make for good government. So I wanted to share those observations with you. And I don't want to pick on you, Stasis, but that's the way the word, Stasis, well, you don't have to bear with me, I'm old. And so I just want to share that kind of important point. I think the thing is, people do not have a great deal of confidence in government at all levels. And unfortunately, that sort of spills over on you guys. And sometimes you deserve it, sometimes you don't. Just another, geez, I happen to notice Manusa's name is on this one too.
Wow. Double whammy today, George.
You're monopolizing the press, Stasis. And it's about political parties trade ideas for getting more economic development. And I think that's a good idea, and I would certainly encourage that kind of thing. I think sometimes you would want to reach out perhaps more to the community than you do. Mr. Young likes to use the term retreads. And I don't know that I would always use that term, but maybe it's a strong message there. What we need is people who can go look outside the box, be a little bit of an iconoclast from time to time, rattle people's cages. And the thing that caught my eye, that's where projects, for example, the $75 million high school renovation project comes in. If you can boost areas such as education and draw more residents to town, business will follow. Now that's easy to say that. But I've been living in this town longer than some of you have been alive. And I don't know that that's always the case. As we bring more residents in the town, we bring more kids in the town and make school budgets go up, so there are problems here. So again, reach out to the community and see what can happen there. I think that's just a thought. Another quick review, charter review. I know you're going to be making appointments tonight, and I hope that you have gotten some fresh new blood into the membership that will be looking at the charter. Not people who are going to sit there and say, yes, I guess that's right, everything's fine, everything's honky-dory. People who can think back and say, I wonder what the hell's wrong with what we're doing? What's wrong with our charter? And you hear it often here. You hear it when we play these little games about spending a lot of money and don't have referendums. We see it, for example, I'm a firm believer, I think we should have recall capabilities in our state, in our town. Some states have it. I mean, if you're a good councilman, you get elected. If you're a bad councilman, we ought to be able to get rid of you. I'm not saying that any of you here deserve that, but sometimes you need to have your feet kept to the fire. It's uniform access on the part of the citizenry to our elected officials. And I believe, I don't know, maybe I'm a simple folk, but the charter should apply both to the council as well as to how our Board of Education runs. And you go to a meeting where there's hardly anybody there, and if someone dare go over the 5 minutes, they go into a state of apoplexy. And I think that's wrong. And I think the charter may very well be a way to correct some of those kinds of things. If I want to sit here for 15 minutes, and I don't know how long I've been gone, I left my watch over there, but I try to keep it short and to the point. You know, you ought to be able to say what you got to say anyway. So, on referendums, on big expenditures, don't try to skirt the law. The objective should be, you should go to referendum if you got a certain dollar value to go over. And those are my words of wisdom for tonight. Finally, have yourselves a very, very blessed Christmas. Have a good New Year. I don't think we'll be seeing each other until after the 1st. Good luck. Drive careful. Don't text. All that other good stuff. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to council reports. Anybody with council report? Mr. Cock.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. A couple. Library Board met a couple weeks ago. Couple interesting items. I don't know if many people in the room may have attended their book sale that the Friends of the Library held on behalf of the library. It raised almost $8,000, which is almost double what they normally raise. So that's a great start. The Friends of the Library annually donate, I guess last year donated about $18,000 to the library. And there are 245 members. I'm one of them, and they do a good job. So I would urge folks who are committed to the library and others to join that group. The other item which came up and we had some discussion on is some of the folks who were on the council several years ago may recall that there was there were a number of issues at the library, frequently with kids getting out of the middle school and then coming over to the library and being somewhat disruptive in the library. The library now has a monitor, or they've had a monitor for a number of years. I think they're now on the fourth person in the role. The person's been there for 3 years, and it seems like that issue has been taken care of. Kids are checked in. There's escalating enforcement in case there's any sort of disruption, and it sounds like the issue, which was pretty bad over at the library in the afternoon several years ago, has been taken care of, and it's being adequately addressed. So that's good, especially for folks who use the library frequently in the afternoons. So the library board, earlier this evening, we had a meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee. A couple of items. The first is that the town, and I think there's going to be a notice that's going to go in rare reminder later this week. We did receive at the meeting the town's comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. Bottom line is the town is in good shape. Our unrestricted fund balance is 10% of general fund expenditures, which actually is really at the high end of the range that that the town has set for fiscal policy. So as we move forward and we begin issuing bonds for the high school renovation, that's a good sign. It's a good sign that the town's finances are in good shape and that we do have that more financial flexibility than we've had, certainly for the past decade, if not more. We will be meeting with the auditor. We got their initial assessment, and we'll be meeting with the auditor, and the Budget and Finance Committee will be meeting on the 21st of January. So that's an annual meeting that we've had. The other item that came up is this, the charter requires us to go through a bid process or a request for proposals for town attorneys. We've begun that process. We got 5 proposals in, and we'll probably be commencing interviews sometime in the first half of January. And the last item is we're also going to be trying to get together, our Budget and Finance Committee is going to try to get together with the Board of Education's Finance Committee as early as we can in the budget process, which probably means sometime before the end of January, because the board needs to have their budget done. I think it's by the middle of March and sent over to us. So that's my report.
Thank you, Councilor Cock.
Thank you.
Nice job. Other reports? Tony?
On December 6th, the EDIC committee met again. A few things on their plate that day were they were talking about their website, and they might be looking to go out for a second intern an IT-type intern to help them with updating the website and making it more friendly and get more data out there. They're also currently working on a new town calendar and business directory. And a couple days later was going to be the Salute to Business at the Country Club, in which a number of businesses were being recognized for their many long years of being here in town, and that was supposed to be a great event.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. Other reports? Jared?
Yeah, Shared Services met on December 4th, and the Shared Services Committee is myself, Donna, Tony Martino, Gina, Polly Moon, Elaine Steinmiller Paradise, also John Cassio, and Jeff Kotkin. And we had a very long meeting. We met for like an hour and a half. We went over
goals, objectives, what people are interested in seeing moving forward in terms of sharing services, both on the town and the board side. One of the things we discussed is that there already is a lot of collaboration which goes on both sides, but the public isn't really aware of that in terms of shared health plans, shared pension plans, property liability insurance, buildings and grounds, etc. So we're going to try and publicize more of that so people are aware of the work that's already been done. The committee felt that the first area they would like to see a real consolidation take place in is the area of IT. And everyone felt that was the most natural fit, specifically around hardware and also around staffing at some level. So that will be our first project that we'll start working on in the new year, and we're going to try and meet monthly, and our next meeting is scheduled tentatively for January 7th. The other meeting, the other committee meeting I had was Public Safety, which met on December 11th, and that's Mike Rell, Donna, Steve Berry, and myself. And there were two items we talked about. One was the fire truck, which is on the agenda tonight to award a bid. Chief Schroll and Chief Bailey answered questions, especially for folks that are new to serving on the council, as to what the truck's purpose is, the cost, types of funding for it. And so that will be up for an award tonight to award the bid. And then we also had a discussion about going forward, starting to take a more in-depth look at the security issues, a director of security position with the Board of Ed. And we'll also be meeting, not as frequently as shared services, but we'll be meeting as issues come up.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate your follow-up on those topics. Anything else? Want to share a couple of things that I attended last week. It was actually a fairly busy week. We had a fireman's longevity dinner last week, which several members of the council attended. I attended a Connecticut Commission on Municipalities, which reviewed several things that are happening throughout the state with legislative impacts on municipalities, as well as taking a look at financial alternatives for bonding, road work. We had several controllers from around the state who did some presentations to newly elected officials last week. That was very helpful to hear myself. So. Also attended a policeman dinner throughout the state. All the police chiefs throughout the state attended it in Cromwell. I attended that with our chief, Citran. There were several new developments that were shared at it with respect to legislative actions that are impacting police vehicles, police security, as well as legislation impacting public safety and radio systems, which was also helpful. Last week was, Tony mentioned the Salute to Business that occurred last week on Thursday night. I think Councilor Rell and I attended that. I spoke briefly at that. We had a very nice turnout at it, and there were some longevity awards that were given to several businesses in town, many of whom have been here for more than 30 years. So it was a really nice event for that group, and there was also recognition of some folks in town, including Paul Corshane, who passed away this past year and was very active in the community. He received, through his wife, a special award, which was really a special part of the night. Joyce Rosignol, who retired this year, who served the community through Weathersfield Life for almost 40 years, also retired and received some recognition, so it was a good night. I want to mention a couple of dates to folks. Well, we just confirmed this morning a date of January 30th, which is going to be Thursday, January 30th, from 8 till 10:30. The location will yet to be determined, but this will be an event that is going to combine our state of the town with a new business initiative, business growth initiative that's going to be sponsored and supported by the Department of Economic and Community Development. We're going to begin marketing that through EDIC and the Chamber very quickly, and the idea will be to get some information out to particularly our local businesses. The Economic and Community Development Department is going to be providing information for specific businesses, hopefully dozens that will attend, about available options to support their growth, their redevelopment, financing improvements in their building, as well as marketing and efforts. So there's significant resources available through the state, and this is directed specifically at stimulating current businesses that serve our community. So that'll be an important date for us, and we are, again, are going to combine it with the Health of the Town report, which the town manager and I will obviously have a chance to do. So hopefully stay tuned on that. If you're a local business, we want to get that information out to you. This is a new initiative that we're looking to get some support for our local businesses, and we're working behind the scenes on that as well. So I want to make sure I reported that. I think that's everything I've got. Mr. Town Manager.
Is there some general comments?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, council comments. I apologize. Council comments? Everybody's quiet tonight. Nothing? Nothing? Okay, then we can't go to the town manager. Thank you.
Just one thing, at the last meeting, we talked about the pawn shop, north end of, north end of the Silas. The building department did go out and measure the signage on the windows. It was over the 25% maximum, and I believe the pawn shop has redone the window signage, so it's compliant.
Oh, good. I'll go by tomorrow. Take a look. How exciting.
There's still a lot of words on the windows, but it is compliant.
Is it still yellow?
Yep, bright yellow. So you can read it from very far away.
We'd have to work on design review to change the color, I suppose. Dolores, anything at your end?
No, not yet.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to council action. I believe there are no resignations from boards and commissions, but I do believe there are some appointments under B1B. Deputy Mayor.
Motion to appoint to the Charter Revision Commission for a term beginning December 16, 2013, for no more than 16 months. T. William Knapp, John J. McAuliffe Jr. of Bolter Road. T. William Knapp is 171 Collier Road. Stephen A. Kirsch of 11 Goff Road. Mary R. Pelletier, 61 State Street. Dan Silver, 10 Orchard Brook. Lou Lacavoli, 247 Ridge. And Mike Zaleski, 23 Black Birch.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any thoughts or comments? I do want to share that we had a very good response to the recall for appointment to this very important commission that will serve, I think, over the next year and a half. And it was actually challenging, unlike some of our other commissions, where sometimes we're trying to get spots. But we had a wonderful host of names that submitted, and we've gotten a collaborative discussion with the full council to identify the folks that are actually being appointed. And I appreciate the work ahead. It's a very important task. I think this group is very well skilled and qualified to do the task, so we look forward to their efforts. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Yes, I'm sorry,
Just a
Don. Go
comment.
ahead.
I'd like to thank the people who have put their name into consideration. There were many years of experience within the town, and the resumes were quite impressive as they came forward, and it was a difficult decision to make.
Thank you, Donna. Yes, and I appreciate your prompt response to our efforts to get all the names looked at, since it was quick turnaround time. So, again, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion's done. Thank you. Steve, I think there's also a separate appointment.
Motion to appoint as an alternate to the Historic District Commission for a term from 12/16/2013 to 6/30/2016. Damian Kreku of 493 Main Street.
Second.
Any comments? We have a motion and a second for it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Jeff, on the, you'll get notices out to these two commissions, right, as far as their
Yes,
appointments?
Dolores
and
and I will.
plan? Great. Thank you, Dolores. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, 4A, award of bid.
Motion to award the bid for the purchase of a new fire truck to Sutphen Corporation for $766,245.94.
And a second?
Second?
Thank you, Donna. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We went out to bid for the new truck to replace the 1981 truck at Company 2. Chief Bailey is here this evening to answer any questions, but it is within budget. We estimated about $800,000. It came in under. Actually, we had two really good bids, close on the vehicles. Sutphen was the lower bidder that met the specifications to the most detail. So we would recommend purchasing the truck. We're still waiting on the firefighter's assistance grant, but it's going to take about a year to get the truck built. And we do have the down payment in cash.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Jerry, I know you talked in public safety about this, and you mentioned it earlier, but it might be beneficial just to share for the benefit of those looking at this, some of the behind-the-scenes work that was done with respect to the building that this is going to be housed, as well as weight restrictions. If you could just share a few points on that.
Yes, hold on a second. So many documents on my little iPad here. Okay. The Chief Schroll went over the bids with the committee, and he also talked about that they met the bid specifications as well as the engineering report on the capacity of the fire station floor to handle the weight, which that's been an issue at Company 2 for a while. And the truck will be serving areas where the 100-foot ladder trucks can operate, such as cul-de-sacs and properties with long driveways or properties with narrow access. And this will also be the second out truck to structure fires to help us with our ISO standards. And the truck will be able to be serviced in East Hartford, where the other bidder, Rosenbauer, the service area was basically in Maine. The truck would be produced in Maine. There was a possibility of some service work in Cromwell, but the main areas, if we needed major work, would either be in Greenfield, Mass, or upstate Maine. And this will allow all the drivers in town to be trained on the same type of vehicle.
Thanks, Jerry. I appreciate that summary. Any questions or concerns for the chief while he's here? We have a motion and a second for the approval of this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Appreciate it. Moving on to 4B.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve a purchase order for general paving and construction in the amount of $276,149.25 for the paving maintenance program.
Second.
Thank you. A motion, a second. Questions, concerns? Mr. Town Manager, maybe you can brief us on this?
I just had a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Are we, with the list of about a half a dozen or so roads, are we limited to just those roads? Could this be opened up in the future? So if there is additional funding left over or pavement left over, that additional roads may be added in the future?
Right, this is for the spring. So as we go through the budget process, including the CIAC, we'll put a list together for a whole new bunch of roads for the fall program and then the spring program for next year as well. So if there is extra money, we can accelerate those fall roads, but that list isn't really developed yet. So there are mechanisms to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Also, Mike, I think it might be helpful, too. There's a full master report, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, that lists every road in town where it falls in the categories for paving. This group here obviously is priority because it's coming up in the spring, but every town road is on that report. It might be a good idea to get that to new counselors. That'd be helpful, Mike, too, because you might see where you've seen some problem roads that you're aware of, that see where they fit.
If I just made, absolutely, there's more need than there is money, absolutely. And prioritizing is always tough because you just have tremendous need.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thoughts? We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We have no ordinance or resolutions. We're moving on to 6A, Town Council Special Meeting, approval of minutes.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you. Any changes, additions, subtractions, changing in names, leadership? Nothing?
Actually, my name was spelled wrong on the attendance, but it's BA. I think it's right on the other agenda. It's just a typo.
Get that corrected, of course. Thank you.
Not a big deal.
No, important, we gotta have the right names, absolutely. Second. Any other changes?
Just Paul, at the end, Joel Wagner, his name does not have an O in the Wagner part.
Right, thank you.
It does
We're
in the
looking
Joel.
at the special meeting first, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the special
Oh, I'm
meeting.
sorry.
Yep, of December 2nd. We have a motion and a second on the special meeting minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Now the town council regular meeting of December 2nd. And your changes have already been noted, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to approve?
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Tony. Any changes, additions beyond what's already been referenced? We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? I believe that is it. And we are,
You get to announce it, we're not having an executive session.
oh, yes, I'm sorry. We did have on the original notice of agenda that it was going to be an executive session. That has been canceled. We are working on some documentation that we're looking to receive to proceed with that discussion, so that's been held off this evening. We're going to move to public comment. Anyone wishing to speak? Gus. Nice to see you, Gus.
Good evening. Gus Colantonio, 16 Morrison Avenue.
Please speak into the mic.
Good evening. Gus Colantonio, 16 Morrison Avenue. And guess what? I'm here again, talking about the same thing. Tonight, I would like to ask, what is the town justification for not addressing the safety of the road on Morrison Avenue? And you will hear this before, and you're going to hear it again. The intersectional side distance for Orchard at Hillcrest Avenue is 344 feet to the east and 970 feet to the west. Keep this in mind, 344 and 970. There are 2 stop signs on Hillcrest Avenue at this location. The intersection side distance on Orchard and Morrison Avenue looking east is 290 feet. Again, 290 feet with 1 stop sign in the westerly direction. 344, 970, 290. The intersection side distance from Tipton Road and Morrison Avenue, as measured by the town, is 232 feet. Now, up there, that's 290, 232 feet to the west, with no stop sign to warn the eastbound traffic at less than adequate side distance. What is the reason for doing nothing? If something happens at this location, how can the town defend the situation? The police department has stated that Morrison Avenue does not warrant the stop sign because there is not enough traffic on the street. Yet, the traffic report shows that on the average day, Morrison Avenue has twice as many cars as Hillcrest Avenue. Town personnel has taken all the measurements at this intersection, has wasted time and money, has proven that what we have here is very inconsistent with good engineering principles, and yet refuses to address the problem. Why spend the time to take these measurements, knowing all along you were not going to do anything? The stop sign on Hillcrest Avenue and the lack of a stop sign on Morrison Avenue in the easterly direction is the reason why the average daily traffic on Morrison Avenue is double than the one on Hillcrest Avenue. I'm going to ask, how long is it going to take to rectify a problem of inequality that has existed for many years? Do you have any sense of responsibility and fairness for all of the residents on Morrison Avenue? And stop making decisions based on personnel preferences. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you, Gus. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Young.
Good evening again, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I was glad to hear Mr. Cockins has a report that the town is in good financial shape and we have 10% in the fund balance. That must mean we must have a lot of money. And maybe there's a chance of reduction in taxes. Also, there might be a good chance to give a sign to a stop sign over on Morrison Avenue. You just might be able now to afford to swing it. Hopefully you'll work on that. Jerry was talking about shared services. It's about time. We've lost 4 years. We've lost a lot of years. We've heard about shared services since I've been coming to these meetings, which is probably 12 years, 13 years, something like that. And, you know, for the school board to go on to talk about, well, we already have shared health services and we have some other little things. The real issue is bring finance under one roof, bring IT under one roof, bring in purchasing under one roof. And we might find that we lose a few people, you know, they retire, and they go away, but we don't replace them. And we get some savings out of that. Talking about retiring people, and I did speak earlier about Mr. Drake, I'd like to also now talk about the revaluation process and Mr. Chandler. Mr. Chandler, who was up here earlier in the meeting, gave you such a great insight as to valuation and all of that. And this is the same Chandler Rose who indicated and signed and sealed that the Wilkes Farm house, barns, and whatever acreage it was worth $310,000, if we all recall. This is the same Chandler at Rose. And what did it end up selling for? 250, 220, I don't know what it was. It was in that range. We took a big hit thanks to him. I think I recommended to let him go back then when we found out about the price was going down and down, and his credibility was becoming less and less. And yet we still have him. And I don't know how we deal with a guy like that when he makes such an error and he's valuing all of our properties. It just, there's a credibility issue here, and he probably should have gone some time ago. You know, we've been seeing our water bills go up. We've been seeing a lot of our bills going up, and we don't see our salaries going up. We don't see our wages going up. We see a lot of poor people that also live in Weathersfield. And you know, as you get into this budget process, which I don't think you're in yet, but when you do, I hope you think about some of these people, these issues. Consider closing down one of our schools, one of our elementaries. We have CREC, we have those academies, we have whatever else they are that are being funded by the state of Connecticut that are opening up all around us, including right here in Weathersfield. And they're going to be taking students away from us. Why? Because our school system has deteriorated to such a point that people would like to get a better education for their children. And staying in the Weathersfield public school system is just not good for their future. It needs to be disbanded over time. It needs to be reduced. It needs to go out of existence or bring in a whole new management team. But we've brought in new management teams. Over the last so many years, we've had, there's a whole bunch, if I went back to my notes, you know, there's so many different superintendents that came in who set up their own teams, and it's been nothing else but failure. We see our grades going down. And then, of course, you know, I mentioned that the prior chairman of the Board of Education made the statement, we learn what works and doesn't work. We learn. Anybody in business doesn't learn to make a business decision. They know what the business decision is going to give them, or they won't do it. But when we have people of high officials in the town of Weathersfield who think like this and make statements like that, it tells us why our school system is so bad and why we're not going upwards. We're going downwards. And as we go downwards, we get closer and closer to Hartford, which I don't think anybody wants to be there, but we are. We're heading that way. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, our ranking here in the state of Connecticut just keeps dropping. Now they're coming out with the new smart test, whatever it's called. I've been reading up on it. I forget what, smart balance, smart something, I don't know what it's called, but it's, the superintendent says the children are not used to doing that kind of a test, and he has no idea how they're gonna take to it. But if it's all being done on computers, our children have been growing up with computers. You know, the parents are buying computers at home for years. Going to school, we've been buying computers. So those students of ours shouldn't need any ramp-up time. They should already be there, ready to go on that test and do very well. But again, we have some bad liabilities in this town. We can go through and look at each one of these schools, and we can identify, get right to the school, right to almost to the classroom, who needs to go, and nobody has gone, and we continue to have this problem. Thank you very much, and have a nice night.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Rue?
George A. Rowe, 956 Cloverdale Circle. Why don't you guys buy the stop sign? Just buy the damn
Because
thing.
it's against the law. It's against the law.
I've thought about getting a group of surreptitious people go around at night and stick the sign and leave it there. Anyway, just having a little fun. Just a quick question, a comment on the charter review. The last charter review commission, I think Jerry was on, and I attended many of the meetings, and they were held in some little tiny room downstairs. And that was really not a very good spot. I would like to suggest that you have those meetings in a venue where the public, if they want to come, they would feel comfortable and be able to come. And I would also suggest that somewhere in however the procedures are set up, that the public be given an opportunity to share some comments with things, either during the discussion or, granted, it may take a little bit more time, but we're talking about a very important document. And if it takes a little bit more time, so be it. But I think we should be seeking as much input as we can from the community. One other quick item. I have spoken to the manager, anyone of a number of times on when new committees come in. You know, they seem, I mean, just because it seems that way doesn't mean it is that way, but that's my perception. That they almost want to start from scratch. If they got a whole bunch of projects, they'll say, they throw them in a box and stir them up, and then they pull them out this way, you know, and then they start all over. And maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't happen, but perception is reality to those that are affected by it. Anyway, I thought Mr. Rell's question was a very innocuous question, and I hope you picked up on it. It had to do with opening up the door on committee on paving streets for others that are on the list that have gotten to that particular point. That question caught my attention. Watch it. That's all I'm telling you. I don't need to go beyond. I think you know what I'm telling you. I think you're smart enough to know what I'm saying. But as these projects that affect the citizenry of the town move forward, we want to make sure that we don't open them up and have them all get reshuffled again, and you know, people again get expecting things to happen and that don't happen. So just a word of caution. And I should have saved this for earlier. I should have saved earlier for now. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Other comments from the public? Before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I just want to wish our community a safe holiday season, travels folks are going, and on behalf of the council, I want to also express appreciation to the council for their work this year. Look forward to 2014 and hope you all have a safe holiday as well. Entertaining a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, wait.